Welcome students of Form 1, Form 1A and Form 1B. Welcome to this video about role models. That is the topic of this video. And like during the other videos, if you can take this part 6 in front of you and the right chapter 2, paragraph 1 about social interaction, that would be great. So in this video, we are talking about social interaction. And specifically we are talking about role models. And specific. And again, if you have your book, please take that in front of you. That will be very helpful. What is the learning outcome? In this section, you will learn to identify the positive traits of a role model. So you will learn to identify, that is the behavior verb, like name the positive traits of a role model. And perhaps you have a role model in your life, and this person, she or he, has certain positive traits that you can name. We're going to talk about those. Okay. For instance, a positive role model can be that you're very charismatic. Charismatic means that a lot of people tend to listen to you. A positive character trait can be that you're very clear-headed. When an accident happens or there is a natural disaster, you know what to do. Or that you're very caring. If your brother or sister is ill, that you in the family or the person from your nature tends to take care of them. Or that you're very contemplative, that when something happens, you're the person that think it through, and to think about things that regular people don't tend to think about. Famous persons that are role models in the history of Curacao, for instance, Professor Dagosta Gomez, the person who negotiated the statute by which we still belong to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and one of the most famous Curaçaoan politicians from the 50s, or Ozzy Albiz, a very famous Curaçaoan baseball player who is very successful and competitive in this. Or, for instance, Frank Martinez Arion, the founder of FSAP, of our school, of the VSBO at first, and later on also the HAVO, VWO, the Pre-Universitario, and he had an idea to create a school where the primary language is Papiamento. And he also wrote a lot of poems and a lot of books about language, about the origins of Papiamento, and he was a very groundbreaking intellectual for the Caribbean and especially for Curacao. During the last video, the part 1 of this video, we talked about Mary Seacole, a very courageous person, a very caring person, who had a lot of knowledge about herbal medicine, and he went to the Crimea, close to Russia, close to Ukraine, to care for the soldiers that were wounded during the Crimean War, during the second half of the 19th century. So we've seen she was very determined. So determination can be a positive character trait, and compassion, like Mary Seacombe had. She was very compassionate about the soldiers during the Crimean War, can be two positive character traits. Compassion and determination can be two very positive character traits. And in this video, we will talk about more positive character traits, for instance, that of Eric Williams. He was the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and he was very clever person. He studied for a long time, and he was very intellectual. He also wrote books, just like our Frank Martinez Arion did. Frank Martinez Arion was also an intellectual, and Eric Williams was also somebody who studied for a long time and also wrote books by himself about history and economy and also slavery. So these are two character traits that really go up for Mr. Eric Williams. He was very intellectual, and he was very clever, and he was the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, so when we look at Venezuela, Curacao is more that direction, and here we have Trinidad and Tobago. So more to this direction, we have Margarita, and we have the ABC Islands, and also Curacao, close to the island of Venezuela. So Eric Williams was the first Prime Minister of a country that was very close by to our Curacao. Let's look at him more closely. So Eric Williams was a scholar. A scholar is someone who wrote a lot of books, and a scholar is a person who read a lot of books and has a lot of intellectual thinking authority about things, like for instance the economy and history. And he was a politician. That means that he was a very person who led Trinidad and Tobago, and we can see this in the fact that he was the first prime minister of this country. He founded the People's National Movement, and at its head of this political party, he steered his country to independence. So Trinidad and Tobago used to be a part of Great Britain, of England, and Eric Williams was the prime minister who led Trinidad and Tobago to being independent of Great Britain. And he is rightly regarded as the father of the nation, like Professor D'Agosta Gomez is for Curacao. He is also regarded as one of the fathers of the nation, Mr. D'Agosta Gomez. Eric Williams is regarded as that, but not for Curacao, but for Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah? So he is famous because of his leadership, like you can see over there. He is famous because of his leadership. And in the meantime, you can think about what is leadership in Papiamentu. We'll find out in a few minutes. He was famous because of his leadership. He was famous because of his intellect. He was a very smart person, very intellectual. And he was also famous because he was very committed. Committed to what? To making Trinidad and Tobago independent. He was committed to the leadership of Trinidad and Tobago, and he was very committed in making Trinidad and Tobago an independent country. Two islands before the coast of Venezuela that became independent under the leadership and the committed guidance of Mr. Eric Williams, that you can see here. He is very committed to making Trinidad and Tobago independent from Great Britain. Great Britain, it was a mother country of the colony Trinidad and Tobago, and under the leadership of Eric Williams, the country became independent. Second person of this video is a sports lady, Miss Stephanie Taylor. She was born in 1991, and from the age of 17, she went to play cricket, and she captained the team when they won the West Indies Cricket Board Women's Regional Tournament in 2011. Comparable to Ozzy Albies, she was famous because of her sports achievements. He is an athlete, she still is by the way, and very inspirational and very charismatic for a lot of people in the Caribbean, because cricket, it looks like a little bit like baseball, but it isn't. Cricket is a very famous sport in a lot of countries in the Caribbean, especially countries that used to be a colony of England, of Great Britain. And it actually is older than baseball. Cricket was there before baseball. And baseball is actually the version of the Caribbean and some countries in the Middle East and East Asia that were used to be colonies of England. And she played cricket at an early age. She captained a team, a cricket team, and they won during the West Indies Board Women's Regional Tournament in 2011. And this is Stephanie Taylor. You can see her over there with a bat in her hand and hitting a ball. Now, I'm not a great expert on cricket, but I can tell you that. Okay, we've seen in this section you will learn too, we've identified the positive traits of a role model. And perhaps you know role models by yourself that are inspirational for you and that have positive character traits. And we've seen in this video about role models, we've talked about Professor D'Agosta Gomez. We've talked about Ozzy Albiz, a baseball player, during these two videos. We've talked about Frank Martinez Arion, and we've seen that Professor D'Agosta Gomez was very charismatic and led Curacao to autonomy. That Ozzy Albiz is very competitive and he's very successful in the American baseball leagues. We've seen that Frank Martinez Arion was very creative in writing books, in doing investigation to the origins of Papiamento, and having an idea in creating a new school organization that would teach Curaçaoan young people and children in Papiamento. What was it? The idea at that moment was very groundbreaking and very new to do that in the 80s. And their behavior, like you can see here, their behavior still acts for a lot of people as a guide in being groundbreaking, in being creative, in being competitive, in being charismatic. Their behavior and their decisions in life acts for a lot of people still as a guide in the life of people. Comportación y gente aquí te fungí como un guía. We've also talked about this lady, we've talked about this cricketer, this cricket lady, sports lady, and she is outstanding as a sports person, and she is very driven in being the captain in 2011 of the West Indies Caribbean sports team. And in that, she was very driven, also very groundbreaking, and very outstanding. And besides that, we've seen that Frank Martinez Arion was a visionary, and we've seen that Professor D'Agosta Gomez was a very capable and very good and inspiring leader for the people of Curacao. So here we've seen all kinds of positive character traits that people can have. From being a good leader, from being outstanding and being very driven, from being very competitive, from being a visionary and being very creative. These are examples, all of these that you can see over there, these are examples of all kinds of character traits that you can have. And there are thousands of more positive character traits that you have and that I can have and that your parents can have and that your friends can have, and that are positive character traits that people can have. I hope that you found this video very helpful, that you know now what leadership is, liderazgo in Papiamento, and that leadership like that of Professor D'Agosta Gomez or the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Eric Williams, they can be very inspiring in their leadership. And this can act, this behavior can act as an inspiration, and it can act as a guide in our life. And we've also seen that some people are visionaries. Some people have ideas that are in their time are very groundbreaking. They do something that other people have not done before, like Professor D'Agosta Gomez making Curacao autonomous, like the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago leading Trinidad and Tobago to independence, or our founder of our school, Frank Martinez Arion, having an idea in creating a school that teaches the children of Curacao in Papiamento. If you want to subscribe, you can do that by clicking on the portrait to the left of this video or doing that below. If you have questions, you can also do that below. And for now, I hope to see you soon.